Diane Arbus was an American-style photographer known for taking documentary-style photos of citizens of New York and marginalized people, such as dwarfs, giants, transgender people, nudists, circus performers, and others who were perceived as by the general public as ugly or surreal.
At the time, Diane Arbus was considered very controversial and her work was frowned upon. Her work was spat on in galleries like 1967 MoMA, and photos were considered unflattering by the people in them.
This photo, taken by Diane, is called Girl in the Swimming Cap and was taken in 1970.
The first thing that you notice about the girl in the swimming cap is that her swimming cap has clowns on it. Clowns are circus performers who Diane Arbus actually liked to take photos of and be around. Clowns in swimming caps are quite different and they're typical of Arbus's different style. It also kind of represents a childish sense and character air about the girl. The light hits her face, the top of her head and her face, and it kind of makes us focus on her expression and her smile, and draws us to her eyes and those high points of her body. She looks happy and relaxed if you look at the smile and the eyes. The focus on her body and her carefreeness is shown by the strap that's kind of fallen and she's not really paying much attention to it. And then the background is blurred, so we're really quickly looking at her.
So the girl is the main subject of the image, and I feel that she must have some relationship with the photographer Diane Arbus, because in the image you get the sense that she's so relaxed and so comfortable and so happy. And I feel that the photo is just very pure and happy, and I feel like as to what just happened or what is about to happen, I feel that she's just enjoyed some time at the pool, and I feel that she's just going to continue on with her day after this photo was taken. This photo is significant because in the image the girl appears to have Down syndrome, and in the 1970s disabled people were considered insane and that they were seen as unhealthy, defective and deviant, and were often put in mental institutions.
This image taken by Diane Arbus is entitled Kid in Blackface with a Friend and was taken in New York City in 1957.
The subject of the image is a young boy with his face painted black standing next to a friend.
So there are a few codes and conventions and meaning-making devices in the photo that help us understand what it's about and why. So one of the things that we're immediately drawn to is the darkness of the face, and that's meant to be confronting and encourage the audience to question the societal and racial values of the time. The fact that it's a small child playing in the street kind of normalizes the hate. And then we see the kid in a power stance, which kind of indicates superiority, and that he's kind of he's firm and he's into what he's doing. So again, being drawn to his face indicates emotion, and it reveals, and the whole body being shown of the child indicates and reveals that the child is small and subsequently innocent and vulnerable and impressionable.
In this image, I hope that Diane Arbus has had a prior relationship with the child, and this is not something that she has just encountered on the streets and photographed. I hope it is something that she has thought up, because it is scary to think about that this would have been something she just could have captured on the street
and was normal.
This shouldn't be normalized. And I feel like as a result of this image, at the time there wouldn't have been that much backlash about it, but right now it is very
relevant to the racial attitudes. This image also indicates racial attitudes of the 60s and the 50s. We know that the 60s were a time of people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. We had JFK as president, and then Richard Nixon, and then there were so many protests and things, and the whole Rosa Parks bus story was pretty fresh in people's minds. They were considered people, but they weren't given the rights and the same freedoms as people of different colours. And racism and prejudice was still very prevalent in their society.
Diane Arbus took pictures of marginalised people because she was obsessed with big mythical stories and as who we are on the earth as people. Diane Arbus broke the long-standing agreement that a photographer will make a subject look good as well. The codes and conventions that are consistently used in Arbus's work are predominantly the black and white colouring of her images, which portray rawness and emotion and holds true to her documentary style photography. The photos aren't glamorous and are often taken front on, and they have not evolved over time and have stayed relatively the same.
The lack of evolution in these photos is reflective of the lack of evolution in society and humanity, and it stays true to that documentary style, and it shows that this is the one way that things are happening, and it's doing it pretty effectively. Again, that whole raw and honest documentary type feel is reflective of the political sphere of the time. It was a decade of protests and civil rights and human rights activism, with people like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X on the scene. And we often see a lot of freedom things and protests, and that was very, very prevalent in society.